Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. No problem, that's fine. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم رب اشرح لي صدري يسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي ربي زدني علما ربي زدني علما ربي زدني علما ربي يسر ولا تعسر وتمم بالخير آمين يا رب العالمين. Before I begin, I just want to share that if you had noticed on the group in the group chat, the group description has been changed, which means that the classes are now also available. Even these classes, the Tafsir classes, are also available on YouTube. All right. So if you go onto the group description, you will see a link. You will see various links for live class, links for the recording folder, links for the Shamail and Sira on YouTube, and now link for the Tafsir on YouTube as well, which you can share. You will still have the Google Drive. You can access the Google Drive if you want, and if you want, you can go onto YouTube and catch up from there if you have missed any classes. Obviously, the ones uploaded on YouTube will take a bit of time. The ones that are on the Google Drive will be uploaded pretty quickly. All right. With this, let's begin now. Last week, we started with Surah Al-Baqarah and we stopped at ayah number 20. We had covered two parables that Allah Ta'ala has mentioned in this surah. And the first parable was of a man who kindled fire, and Allah Ta'ala describes his situation that he was in dark and his need for a fire was great, and he lit it from someone else's fire as he had no fire of his own and needed to bring it from someone else. And then when the fire illuminated the area around him and he could see his surroundings and any potential dangers, he felt safe and benefited from the fire and was pleased with it, thinking that he was in control of it. Whilst he wasn't, and Allah took away its light so that he lost the light and any pleasure that he had felt because of it, and he remained in deep darkness. With the fire still burning, as its illumination had disappeared, but its burning effect still remained. Thus he was left in many layers of darkness, the darkness of the night and the rain and the darkness of the light as it disappears. So how will one be in such a situation? That is how these hypocrites are. Allah Ta'ala used these parables to describe the situation of the hypocrites. They took the fire of faith from the believers, but having faith was not characteristic of them. Rather, they took the fire of faith in order to protect their lives and keep their wealth safe, so they had a kind of security in this world. Then, whilst they were like that, death came to them and took away the benefit of that light, and there befell them all kinds of distress, grief, and torment, as well as darkness of disbelief, the darkness of hypocrisy, and the darkness of various kinds of sins. And because they have forsaken the truth after having come to know it, so they will also not return to it. The second parable was about one who's got in a heavy downpour from the sky, which is rain that comes down abundantly, accompanied by darkness of the night, of the cloud, of the rain. And then there is thunder, and every time it flashes in the darkness, these people, they walk a few steps, but when the darkness overtakes them, they stand still and they halt. And this is the situation of the hypocrites. When they hear the Quran and its commands and prohibitions, promises and warnings, they put their fingers in their ears and turn away from its commands and prohibitions. And they are terrified of its warnings and disturbed by its promises to the believers. So hence they turn away as much as they can, and they hate it as the one who is caught in a downpour hates it. And when he hears the thunder, he puts his fingers in his ears for fear of death. So the first 20 verses of the surah divided men into three groups. And the basis of their acceptance or rejection of the guidance. And this was on the basis of their acceptance or rejection of the guidance. And this indicates that the proper criterion for dividing men into groups is neither race, nor color, nor language, nor geography, but religion. So they were the believers, the disbelievers, and the hypocrites. These were the three groups that mankind was divided into. All right. So with this a brief recap, now we begin with ayah number 21. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. I will read right up to ayah number 29 and then do the tafsir. يا أيها الناس اعبدوا ربكم الذي خلقكم والذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. O people, worship your Lord who created you and those before you, so that you may become God-fearing. الذي جعل لكم الأرض فراشا والسماء بناء وأنزل من السماء ماء فأخرج به من الثمرات رزقا لكم فلا تجعلوا لله أندادا وأنتم تعلمون. He is the one who made the earth a bed for you, and the sky a roof, and sent down water from the sky, then brought forth with it fruits as a provision for you. So do not set up parallels to Allah when you know. وَإِن كُنتُمْ فِي رَيْبٍ مِّمَّا نَزَّلْنَا عَلَىٰ عَبْدِنَا فَأْتُوا بِسُورَةٍ مِّن مِّثْلِهِ وَادْعُوا شُهَدَاءَكُم مِّن دُونِ اللَّهِ إِن كُنتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. If you are in doubt about what we have revealed to our servant, then bring a surah similar to this. Bisuratim mim mislihi. Bring a surah similar to this, and do call your supporters other than Allah, if you are true. In kuntum sadiqin, if you are true. فَإِن لَّمْ تَفْعَلُوا وَلَن تَفْعَلُوا فَاتَّقُوا النَّارَ الَّتِي وَقُودُهَا النَّاسُ وَالْحِجَارَةُ أُعِدَّتْ لِلْكَافِرِينَ. But if you do not, and you will never be able to, then guard yourselves against the nar, the fire, the fuel of which will be men and stones. Nasu wal hijaratu, men and stones. It has been prepared for the kafirin, for the disbelievers. وَبَشِّرُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ أَنَّ لَهُمْ جَنَّاتٍ تَجْرِي مِن تَحْتِهَا الْأَنْهَارُ. And give good news to those who believe and do righteous deeds, that for them there are gardens beneath which rivers flow. كُلَّمَا رُزِقُوا مِنْهَا مِنْ ثَمَرَةٍ رِزْقًا قَالُوا هَذَا الَّذِي رُزِقْنَا مِنْ قَبْلُ وَأُوتُوا بِهِ مُتَشَابِهًا وَلَهُمْ فِيهَا أَزْوَاجٌ مُطَهَّرَةٌ وَهُمْ فِيهَا خَالِدُونَ. Every time they are given a fruit from there to eat, they will say, this is what we have been given before. And they will be given fruits resembling one another. And for them there shall be wives purified, and they will live forever. إن الله لا يستحي أن يضرب مثلا ما بعودة فما فوقها فأما الذين آمنوا فيعلمون أنه الحق من ربهم وأما الذين كفروا فيقولون ماذا أراد الله بهذا مثلا يضل به كثيرا ويهدي به كثيرا وما يضل به إلا الفاسقين. Indeed, Allah does not feel shy in citing any parable, be it that of a gnat or of something above it. Now as for those who believe, they know it is the truth from their Lord, whilst those who disbelieve say, what could Allah have meant by this parable? By this he lets many go astray, and by this he makes many find guidance. But he does not let anyone go astray thereby except those who are fasiqeen, who are sinful. الذين ينقضون عهد الله من بعد ميثاقه ويقطعون ما أمر الله به أن يوصل ويفسدون في الأرض أولئك هم الخاسرون. Those who break the covenant of Allah after it has been made binding and cut off the relations Allah has commanded to be joined and spread disorder on the earth, it is these who are the losers. كيف تكفرون بالله وكنتم أمواتا فأحياكم ثم يميتكم ثم يحييكم ثم إليه ترجعون. How is it that you deny Allah while you were lifeless and He gave you life? Then He will make you die and then He will make you live again, and then to Him you will be returned. هو الذي خلق لكم ما في الأرض جميعا ثم استوى إلى السماء فسوّهن سبع سماوات وهو بكل شيء عليم. It is He who created for you all that the earth contains. Then He turned to the heavens and made them 7 skies, and He is the knower of all things. All right. So, ayah number 21, the sentence is addressed to all the 3 groups of men, and for each it has a different meaning. So, "Uhbudu rabbukum," worship your Lord. The phrase calls upon the disbelievers to give up worshipping created beings and to turn to the Creator. It asks the hypocrites to be sincere and true in their faith, and it commands the sinning Muslims to change their ways and try to perfect in their obedience to Allah. And it encourages the God-fearing Muslims to be steadfast in their worship and obedience and to make a greater effort in the way of Allah. So this is a general command that is addressed to all people, instructing them to worship Him in a comprehensive way by obeying the commands of Allah, heeding His prohibitions, and believing in His words. Then Allah Ta'ala tells us why it is obligatory to worship Him alone. For He is our Lord who has bestowed upon us all kinds of blessings. He created us after we were nothing. He created those who came before us, and He bestowed upon us blessings both obvious and hidden. And this is a quality which one cannot even imagine to belong to a created being, for it can pertain only to a creator. And this is the quality of giving existence to what did not exist before. And then the final phrase of this ayah, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. This has been translated so that you may become God conscious, or so that you may become God fearing. And it may also be translated to mean so that you may save yourselves from hell, or so that you may guard yourselves against evil. But the point is that one can hope to attain salvation and paradise only when one worships Allah alone. And does not associate anyone else with Him. The one who worships Allah properly is one of the pious, and whoever is pious will be saved from the wrath and punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then Allah Ta'ala continues in ayah number 22 that He is the one who made the earth a bed for you. Firasha is bed. So He made this earth a resting place for you, on which you build structures for your benefit. Allah Ta'ala is recounting all the blessings here. He caused you to cultivate land and till it. He enabled you to travel from one place to another, sent down rain from the heavens, and brought forth fruits to feed and sustain you, so that you might survive by means of it and enjoy it. So do not set up rivals to Allah. After recounting these blessings, Allah Ta'ala says, do not set up rivals to Allah. That is, equals from among His creation, which you worship as you should worship Allah, and love as you should love Allah. Although they are created beings, like you who receive provision and who are under his control, having not the slightest power either in heaven or on earth, and they cannot benefit or harm you at all. And when Allah Ta'ala says, when you know better, that is, when you know that Allah has no partner or equal. When you know here at the end means when you know better, when you know you know better than this, that Allah Ta'ala has no partner or equal. So the guidance which the Quran provides to man rests on two principles. Number one is Tawheed, the oneness of Allah, and number two is Risala, prophethood. So these verses 21 and 22 affirm the oneness of Allah, and the verses 23 and 24 affirm the prophethood of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in presenting the word of Allah as a proof. And these two verses, and I'm talking about 23 and 24, these two verses refer to a kind of speech which cannot possibly come from anyone except Allah, and the like of which no human being can ever produce. And this is addressed to those who, these verses are addressed to those who opposed Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and rejected his message, saying that he was lying. And Allah says that if you are doubtful and are uncertain concerning what we have sent down to our slave, referring to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as to whether what he has brought is true or not, then here is a fair argument which will decide the matter between you and him. And that argument is that he is a human being like you. He's not the most eloquent, most knowledgeable among you. You have known him from when he was small. As he grew up among you, he does not read or write. Yet he has brought you a book that he says is from Allah, but you say that he is speaking of his own accord and has made it up. If the matter is as you say, then produce a surah like it, with the help of anyone you can find among your helpers and witnesses. This will be something easy for you, especially since you are people of eloquence and oratory. As I mentioned, the Arabs were very good at language. But this resentment against Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was fueled by their deep enmity and their jealousy towards Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Allah Ta'ala says that if you can produce a surah like it, then do so. Produce a surah. And if you fail, which you will fail, then believe in the message that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has brought. So these are verses of a challenge that Allah Ta'ala sometimes addresses to the believers, that bring a surah like this if you can, if you are that good. But if you fail, then accept and surrender to the truth. And if you fail to meet this challenge, then Allah Ta'ala says it will be obligatory for you to follow Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and protect yourselves from hellfire, which will reach the ultimate heat because its fuel is people and stones. It's not like the fire of this world that is fueled with wood. Its fuel is people and stones. And this and similar verses are called verses of challenge. They prove that people are incapable of producing anything like the Quran. Another thing worth noticing here is Allah Ta'ala refers to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as Abdina, our slave or our servant. Now, describing Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the messenger, as being a slave in the context of discussing such an important matter is indicative of his greatest characteristic, which is what? Which is being a true slave of Allah, doing his duty towards him in a manner unmatched by anyone else before or since. And Allama Qurtubi states that this is the highest honor for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or for that matter, for any believer, that he or she is the slave of Allah. And another point that I want to mention is that Allah Ta'ala talks about hell and its fire, the fuel of the fire being men and stones. Allama Qurtubi states that this shows that hell has already been created. Paradise and hell are two created entities. It also indicates that punishment becomes due for reasons. And what are those reasons? Namely, disbelief and various kinds of sins. All right. Then Allah Ta'ala moves on to giving glad tidings to the believers in ayah number 25. Now, Ibn Kasir rahimullah comments that after Allah mentioned the end of those who disbelieved in in this message, He followed it up with the end of those who believe in it and do good works. This is the style of the Quran. It mentions a thing and follows it up with its opposite. It mentions another thing and then it's like. So it states the end of the virtuous ones and then that of the evil ones. It speaks of faith and follows it up with the subject of disbelief. It refers to the consequence of a certain kind of attitude and then immediately describes the consequence of another kind of attitude, and so on. And this is the style of Quran which combines encouragement with deterrent, so that the individual will be motivated and deterred at the same time, and he will balance fear with hope. And Allah Ta'ala says, gives good news to the righteous, those who believe and do good deeds. Amelus Swalihat. So Allah Ta'ala always speaks of belief first, having faith, having iman. That is the most important. And then it should be followed by righteous deeds, by Swalihat. Now, good deeds are described as righteous Swalihat because by means of them, people's affairs, both religious and worldly, in this world and in the hereafter, are set straight or put right. Taslu, Swalihat comes from taslu, which means to set something right, to set straight. So, by describing righteous deeds, Salihat, it means that they will put a man's affairs right and all troubles will be eliminated. And thus he will become one of the righteous, the Salihun, who are qualified to be close to the most merciful in his paradise. And Allah Ta'ala gives them glad tidings. Glad tidings of Jannah, where they will abide forever, where there will be gardens underneath which rivers flow. Then Allah Ta'ala mentions about the bounties in Jannah. Ibn Abbas, Ibn Masud radiallahu anhuma, and other companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam have been reported as saying that each time the people of paradise are served with a fruit, it will seem to them as if they had been served earlier during their lives on earth. But in actual fact, they would be similar only in their shape and color. Their tastes would be different. I'm sure their taste would be amazing, far better than the sweetest fruits that we have tasted in this world. And Ibn Abbas radiallahu anh is reported to have said that there is no similarity between the fruits of paradise and the fruits of this life, except that they have common names. The other point to mention here is in the end of this ayah, it says, "And for them they shall be wives purified, and there they will live forever." Now notice the words azwajun has been used here. All right. Now, first of all, let's talk about the mutahira, the mutahiratun, the purified, the word purified first. Ibn Masud, Ibn Abbas, and others radiallahu anhuma have said that it means that they will be cleansed and purified of saliva, phlegm, dirt of the nose, ears, urine, excretion, periods, everything. And they will also have no moral impurities. They will have neither physical impurities nor moral impurities. Now coming back to the word azwaj. Now the word azwaj is in the plural form and its singular is zoj. And zoj signifies either of the two components of a couple, that is the male and the female. All right, even though in the translation that we are using, it specifically mentions females, but in fact zoj means either male or female. We can translate it as spouse. So it can refer here, to either male or female, and not necessarily purified wives, but purified spouses, which can refer to either male or female. And another thing that scholars have derived, a lesson that we can learn from this is that it is encouraged to give glad tidings to the believers and to motivate them to do good deeds by referring to the rewards and fruits of those deeds, as Allah Ta'ala has done in this ayah number 25. All right. Then in ayah number 26, Allah Ta'ala says, indeed, Allah Ta'ala does not feel shy in citing any parable, be it that of a fly or of something above it. Now, this was ayah number, it was 26. This verse and the next verse also, 26 and 27. These two verses refer to an objection raised by the disbelievers with regard to the Quran, and Allah Ta'ala provides an answer to them. They had been saying that had the Quran been the word of Allah, it would not have employed worthless creatures like an ant or a fly in its parables. And the Quran answers by saying that there is nothing undignified in the mention of these creatures of Allah. These examples convey wisdom and highlight the truth, and Allah Ta'ala is not ashamed to tell the truth. This is a means by which Allah Ta'ala teaches His slaves, and it is a sign of His mercy towards them. So it should be accepted gracefully. And hence Allah Ta'ala says, those who believe know that it is the truth from their Lord. So they understand it and ponder its meaning. If they understand its message in a comprehensive manner, then their faith and belief will be increased. And we know that there is a hadith also in which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has also mentioned a fly, or you can call a gnat. And this hadith comes in Tirmizi, where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said that had this world been worthier in the sight of Allah than the wing of a fly, the unbelievers would not have been granted a gulp of water to drink. So this is how worthless the dunya is in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we attach so much importance to dunya and to gaining dunya, worldly possessions, even though in the sight of Allah it is worthless. It is not even it doesn't have even the worth of the wing of a fly. So you can imagine how worthless it is. And had it have worth in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then He wouldn't have given any part of the dunya to the disbelievers. And we see all around us that the disbelievers have many, many blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whether they acknowledge it or not, acknowledge those blessings being bestowed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or not, that is besides the point. But still Allah ta'ala has given them blessings because he doesn't care. It is not, this dunya is not worthy in His eyes anyways. All right. And then Allah Ta'ala says that He gives these examples so that He lets these examples so that we can get guidance and we can understand things better. And the Quran, it guides some people and it leads some people astray. That is the quality of the Quran. So it depends on the intentions, with what intentions you approach the Quran. So many will find guidance, many will go astray. But Allah Ta'ala says that He does not let anyone go astray except the fasiqeen, who are sinful people. And who are these sinful people? They are those who rebel and disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who stubbornly oppose the messengers of Allah, those for whom evil doing is an essential part of their character, which they do not seek to change. And as wisdom dictates that they should go astray because they are not qualified to be guided, by the same token, His wisdom and grace dictates that those who believe and do righteous deeds should be guided. Now, the Arabic word used by the Quran in speaking of the disobedient is al-fasiqeen, and its root word is fasaka, which means to go outside or to stray beyond a limit. And in the terminology of Sharia, fisk signifies going beyond the circle of obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or transgressing the commandments of Allah. And the word fasik is applied to a disbeliever, kafir, as well. And such a use of the word is frequent in the Quran. And a Muslim also who is a habitual sinner is also called a fasik. All right, so fasik is used in different ways in the Quran. Then in the next ayah, Allah Ta'ala describes who these evildoers are, who are these fasiqeen. And He says that those who break the covenant of Allah after it has been made binding and they cut off the relations Allah Ta'ala has commanded to be joined and spread disorder on the earth, it is these who are the losers, the khasirun. So those who break Allah Ta'ala's covenant, this includes covenants between them and Allah Ta'ala, and also the covenants between them and the other people which Allah Ta'ala has made binding upon them. But they do not care about these binding obligations. Rather, they break up, ignore His commands, do that which He has forbidden, and transgress the covenants between them and other people. They sever the bonds that Allah Ta'ala has commanded to be upheld. And this includes many things. Allah Ta'ala has commanded us to uphold the bond between us and Him by believing in Him, carrying out duties as His slaves. He has commanded us to uphold the bond between us and His Messenger, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, by believing in Him, loving Him, respecting Him, following Him. He has also commanded us to uphold the bonds between us and our parents, relatives, friends, and all other people by respecting those rights that Allah Ta'ala has commanded us to uphold. And this is very important. And we very often find very religious, outwardly religious people, they sever bonds of kinship. And this is a huge sin. And many people take it very lightly. Severing bonds. You will come across people who, siblings not talking to each other, have not talked for years, maybe perhaps, or even other family members like your khala, mamu, the close relatives, chacha, taya, puppi, these kinds of close relatives. In fact, during Ramadan, I was doing this course by Mufti Ismail Musa, and we were doing a kitab, Adabul Mufrad. This is a book of hadith, in which compiled by Imam Bukhari. And the first few chapters were about holding ties of kinship. And Mufti Saab stressed so much, and all the ahadith that we read, they stressed so much upon holding ties of kinship. Your du'as are not accepted if you break ties of kinship. And the interesting thing that he said is, which I had never thought of, he said when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that we should uphold ties of kinship, It doesn't mean if they are good to you. If they are good to you, then you are good to them. That is reciprocating. They are good to you, you are good to them. They came to your house with a beautiful gift, and next time you will go to their house and take a gift for them. This is reciprocating. The real meaning of upholding ties is upholding ties with those who are severing it, who are not being good to you, but you're still upholding ties of kinship because Allah Ta'ala has commanded. And when you do that, you're doing that solely for the pleasure of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. And there were many people in that class. There were around 300 participants. There used to be 300 participants all over the world, and even more had registered. So I'm sure some of them were listening to the recordings. And Mufti Saab, we read a hadith, and in which it was mentioned that once Abu Hurairah radiallahu anh was sitting in a majlis, and it was a majlis of hadith, and he was teaching a hadith, and he said that whoever present in this majlis has broken ties of kinship should leave the majlis. And Mufti Saab repeated that I will follow the sunnah of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anh. And he asked if there is anyone in this group who has broken the ties of kinship, they can leave. And then I think so that people had privately messaged him. And he said that I am just saying this because I'm following the sunnah, but please make a firm intention. You can stay in the class, but make a firm intention to get back to people that you have not got back to in years. And then people actually mentioned that they called up their uncle or auntie, and these things we have to teach our children as well. When we are no longer there, if a khala is alive, khala has a very important place after the mother. You should call khala once in a while. I'm not saying because of distances you're living in different countries, but like on the occasion of Eid, once a month maybe, however it suits you, but keep some sort of contact and do it with the intention of upholding ties and of pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and of following the sunnah. This is a grave sin to break ties of kinship with your family members, brothers, sisters, and very often there are disputes on inheritance distribution, and then siblings are not talking to each other. This is not on. This is something that we need to work on. And if the other party is hostile as well, even then you should make your effort so that when you stand in front of Allah, you can say that you made your effort, even though the other party was hostile to you, but still out of love of Allah, to please Allah, you made this effort. And this is very important, and we should also teach our children. Every time we have Eid or something, I'm sure most of you do. We make an effort for that our children speak to grandparents and khala and mamu and so on, so that they get into this habit of keeping ties of kinship. Even though we are separated by distances, we are living in different countries, but this is very important in our religion. And then after Allah Ta'ala talks about keeping up the covenant and everything, Allah Ta'ala says that those who do not meet this description, who violate the covenants of Allah, violate the covenants of family members, they are the ones who are the losers in this world and in the hereafter. They are from the khasirun, the losers. They do not achieve any success at all, because the condition for righteous deeds to be accepted is faith. So the one who has no faith has no righteous deeds to his credit. And what loss really means is missing out on something good that one could have achieved and that was within one's means. But we lost it because of not doing the righteous deeds. And maintaining ties of kinship comes under righteous deeds, the solihat. All right. Now going on to the last two verses that we read, 28 and 29. How is it that you deny Allah while you were lifeless and He gave you life, then He will make you die, then He will make you live again, and then to Him you will be returned. It is He who created for you all that the earth contains. Then he turned to the heavens and made them 7 skies, and he is the knower of all things. Now, this is a question, the ayah number 28 is a question which is intended to reflect astonishment as well as to rebuke. How could you disbelieve in Allah, who created you from nothing and bestowed upon you all types of blessings? Then he will cause you to die when you reach the appointed time. And can that be anything other than ignorance and foolishness to not believe in Allah? Rather, what is befitting for you is to believe in Him, be aware of Him, be grateful to Him, fear His punishment, and hope for His reward. He has created for you out of kindness and mercy towards you all things on the face of the earth so that you may benefit from them, enjoy them, and learn from them. And this verse indicates that the basic principle concerning all things is that they are permissible and pure, because the context here is one of reminding us of Allah Ta'ala's blessing. Excluded from that is everything that is evil or foul. The prohibition on such things may also be understood from the meaning of this verse. Allah Ta'ala has created all things for our benefit, so whatever is harmful is excluded from that. And it is a blessing from Allah that He has forbidden foul things to us so as to protect us from them. Then Allah Ta'ala says, then He turned towards the heaven and made them 7 heavens, and He has knowledge of all things. Now the phrase used here, summastawa ila samai. The phrase astawa ila, translated turned to, has 3 meanings in the Quran. All right, it is used in 3 ways in the Quran. Let me put it this way. Number 1, when it appears without any preposition after it, it means attaining a level of complete perfection. And we find this example in the Quran as well, where it has been used without this preposition, ila, all right, or any other preposition for that matter. Number 2, when it is followed by a preposition, ala, which means upon, then it means rising above. And number 3, the third meaning which is employed here, when it is followed by the preposition ila, which is translated to. When it is followed by this preposition ila, it means turning to or deciding, as in this verse, where what is meant is, when Allah Ta'ala had created the earth, He turned to the creation of the heavens and made them 7 heavens. He created them and perfected them. And the mention of Allah's creation of the universe is often followed by affirmation of His omniscience, as in this verse, that is, because His creation of all things is the clearest evidence of His knowledge, wisdom, and might. So Allah Ta'ala concludes this verse by saying, وَهُوَ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عَلِيمٍ, that He is the knower of all things. So this brings us to the end of this ruku, and now the next few verses, there's a lot to unpack in them. So I think I will not start now, and we will do this tomorrow, inshallah. So we will pause here. If there are any questions or any comments, you can share now. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت ونستغفرك ونتوب إليك. May Allah Ta'ala give us the tawfiq on doing amal on what was said and heard, and may Allah Ta'ala make us those who uphold ties of kinship. And now that we have read about it, inshallah, we will try our best and exert our utmost to uphold ties of kinship, reach out to people we have not reached out in a long time, for the sake of Allah, for the love of Allah, for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the whole point of doing tafsir and reading the Quran again and again is to derive lessons and to implement those lessons in our lives. It is not just an academic exercise that we are just reading a book or we have to sit an exam. The real test is that whatever we learn, we implement in our lives. So, after today's lesson, this is something that we should reflect on. That is there anybody in my family, close family, that I haven't contacted in a while, that then it is time to contact them for the sake of Allah, to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All right. Jazakallah khair for listening. Inshallah, we will carry on tomorrow from where we stopped. All right. Mashallah, there's somebody on the chat who is iPhone. If you could change your name, that would be great. Next time, maybe, or whenever you join our class, inshallah.